Hi everybody, so this is A.R.S.E, a Random Center Explains, and today we're going to talk about photosynthesis. That's the chemical process. So photosynthesis is defined as a biological process of converting light energy into chemical energy, which is then stored in organic molecules. So basically what happens is it's 6 carbon, 6 water, and light energy. That's what they all stand for. And that's converted into 1 glucose molecule and 6 oxygen atoms. So the process of life on this planet began, give or take, when the planet was formed, let's say 4 billion years old. How it was seeded with life, the most accepted theory is that it was a meteorite, landed in the ocean most likely, and that led to life being on Earth. And on that meteorite was either mRNA or DNA, or a pieces of it, or a strand, and eventually I guess there was algae. That algae began the process of photosynthesis, which started converting the atmosphere, from carbon dioxide to oxygen. At the same time, it started producing the basis for all fuel for all life, the basic fuel for all life on this earth, which is sugar, glucose. Somewhere along the way, microorganisms formed, and they became bigger and bigger and bigger, eventually, becoming fish, and those fish walked out of the water. And I'm here explaining photosynthesis to you 4 billion years later. So, like I said before, I write as a hobby, and I write poetry as part of that hobby. And I think photosynthesis is the most poetic process on the planet. I mean, it basically takes matter and makes it in, gives it that spark of life, because it's the same carbon that resulted from all those dead stars that I brought up in the other video, like all matter that we see, touch, that we're made of, everything, carbon-based matter, are the result of billions and billions of stars that lived their whole life process and exploded, and that matter cooled and condensed and eventually became us. Like I was said before, the most poetic thing about the human body is that the atoms in your left or right hand came from stars that were probably billions of years apart. Anyway, so back to photosynthesis. Yeah, it's basically the process of taking light and making it into matter, very simply put. And that matter has a spark of life in it, and that's how, we exist, because of that fuel that's produced by photosynthesis. I mean, have you guys seen those experiments about plants having feelings? And you take into account that there's some trees and plants, mostly trees that are, thousands of years old. They live a lot longer than any person could ever hope to. And you wonder what they're feeling or even thinking, if they have the possibility of thinking. Like I said before about consciousness, there's no real understanding of what it is or where it is. Like I said before, there's a theory that it's just part of the universe and we tune into it like a radio tunes into music, And then, I mean, there's the other possibility that it's just a part of the human body, the consciousness, like maybe that's what our soul brings to the body, is that spark of consciousness. Anyway, though, back to photosynthesis. It's just, like I said, it's a really interesting process and the basis for all life on our planet. As we know it, it's the basis for all life, And, I mean, like I said, the process is a lot more complex than I made it sound. I mean, the plant has all these different organelles in it that can do all these different processes. I mean, the most important one of being chloroplasts, where the actual synthesizing of the glucose takes place, where that matter is finally converted into sugar. And then, like I said, then it releases oxygen, which the life that we know is based on. Um, yeah, so like I said, photosynthesis is a very interesting process and the basis for all life. Um, and I think the more we come to understand it, like how, because I mean, we understand how it happens, but why it happened, that would be, I guess, the answer to, or part of the answer as to why we exist. And, because how we exist, I said, is partly explained by the process of photosynthesis. Um, yeah, I mean, light into matter, because like you can see the effects of light, like when I light something up, but you can't see the light itself, I guess is what I'm trying to say, not without, either slowing it down or putting it through a prism or something like that. But yeah, it's just, and then that light becomes, like I said, the basis for our life. Um, it's just a really interesting process. Uh, but yeah, so that's my little talk on photosynthesis. I'll see you guys in the next video. Namaste, like, share, and subscribe, and good night.